So I think they're limiting him even more so than he is. When he gets to the line of scrimmage, doesn't have time, I think that's where he really struggles, because a lot of his offensive success comes from the pre-snap read. After it's snapped, that's where Jalen, I think, is at his weakest.
Without further ado, our boy, our friend, our paisan brother from another mother, he is Marc Farzetta. He joins us now. How you doing, Farzy?
I was Howard S.'s producer in 2006, I think it was. Yeah, that must have been 2006, 2007, about a year and a half. That was my gig. And if Howard got a caller about, like, I don't even know, like A.J. Feely replacing Donovan McNabb or anything like that, it would be you're dope, nitwit, something like that. And I can't help but think that would be the exact way he would handle it, if it was back in the day. If you think Tanner McKee should be a starting quarterback, congratulate, for the Eagles right now over Jalen Hurts, I want to welcome you into the world of football. This must be your first time here watching the game. It's a great sport. You're going to love to learn about this sport of football. And you obviously didn't watch last year. You obviously haven't watched Jalen Hurts' career. And I think Tanner McKee one day, but not now, will be a decent starting quarterback for another team some other time. But to think that he should be starting over Jalen Hurts, who admittedly is in a rough patch, that's absolutely bonkers. The offensive line is terrible. It's the Eagles' biggest problem. They have a first-time play calling offensive coordinator in Kevin Patullo. They have a running back that's coming off of 482 touches from last year, including the postseason. And this is all Jalen's fault. Hey, look, I have critiqued Jalen Hurts and the 6 sacks, for instance, just as an example, against the Broncos. 4 of them, they were actually on Jalen Hurts and not the offensive line. So there's been struggles in that department. But to think that Tanner McKee should be in over Jalen Hurts is absolutely clickbait, ludicrous nonsense. I cannot identify with that at all. It is moronic. Thank you very much.
I was shocked he said that. I really was, because I'm in this boat here. Now, I've always said this about Hurts, and I've never wavered. I think he's limited in the pocket. I think that, when they have a great run game and he's an RPO guy, I think he's a special talent. But if you're asking that quarterback to win on a week-to-week basis and carry a football team in the passing game, Farzy, this is one of the reasons why they changed it a year ago. All the things you said just now. Well, if you have injuries in the offensive line, you can't hold the ball, dude. You're going to take sacks and take you out of field position, and that's kind of what he does. I mean, I was watching the overhead the other day. A.J. Brown is wide open. Now, I'll ask you this in fairness.
On the interception?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this. If you don't have a dominant run game, do you believe Jalen Hurts can carry a football team on his back in the pocket to win football games and to potentially win a Super Bowl on a week-to-week basis? Do you think that's who that guy is?
No, and nor do I want him to be, because he's pretty phenomenal when he gets outside the pocket.
Okay, then why aren't they coaching him that way?
Well, again, first-time offensive coordinator. Everyone wants to look at Nick Sirianni like he has Kevin Patullo as his pretty new pet, okay? This might be him saying, yeah, this is Kevin. You're going to run the offense. I'm going to give you the same respect that I gave Kellen Moore, which I also think would be dumb because he doesn't have the experience that Kellen Moore does. But everyone wants to just look at this and say, oh, really, Nick Sirianni's pushing the buttons. Any good idea might be Jalen Hurts or Nick Sirianni. Any bad idea is Kevin Patullo. I don't know why going into, I think it was last week's game, maybe the week before, it was only 8 passes out of the RPO when Jalen has done well in that category. I don't understand why they wouldn't run that more. I also don't understand why you would pass the ball as often as they have on first down when you consider there are 7 other teams in the NFL, only 7 teams in the NFL that have thrown the ball more on first down. So if you're talking about Kevin Patullo being predictable in his play calling, that's a pretty good example of it. Defenses know what's coming more so than most. Why you're not using Jalen Hurts more to the degree that you used him the year they went to the Super Bowl without Saquon Barkley is beyond me. And that's obviously when Shane Steichen was calling plays for this team. Why they're sort of regressing in all of this, I think, comes down to you're not used to having that dominant offensive line, so it only makes more sense to roll Jalen Hurts out more than have him try to stand there in the pocket. And you obviously have a play caller that's not creative enough to get guys open on the regular basis. Now, the play that you pointed out with A.J. Brown being open in the corner of the end zone, anyone who watches that play knows that was 1,000% on Jalen Hurts. Now, you can be critical of a guy, but still think he's the guy that shouldn't be replaced. Both those things can be true.
Yes.
So watching that play, Sills, you watch the film, you just said, you see outside coverage there by Flott, the cornerback. You see outside coverage there, okay? Yeah. If you see that and you know your wide receiver is running an out route, why the hell are you not only throwing that football, but why the hell are you staring down that receiver and not thinking, all right, I know the other route is AJ going across the back of the end zone here.
Or take off.
Let me get to that play. And it's a dumb, look, quarterbacks are going to miss throws. Quarterbacks are going to throw interceptions. Jalen obviously hadn't done that for a while going into that game. But that is such a bad decision compounded by a bad throw that there's no excusing that play. But it doesn't mean that I'm moving off the mark of Jalen Hurts being the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Absolutely not. Well, I'll ask you this. Do you think they hire these coordinators for Nick or for Jalen?
Well, I think the Brian Johnson hire was a hire for Jalen, and that wasn't good. So I don't think that they would repeat that mistake. My bigger question in all of this, Sills, is what, and I might have asked you this before, but what changed? What changed over the last 2 years where all of a sudden Kevin Patullo was the guy?
No.
Like, he got passed over for Brian Johnson. Okay, you could say that was a Jalen Hurts hire if you want. Okay. He got passed over for Kellen Moore, which I think was obvious, but still passed over. So now, 2 years after being passed over twice here, he's the guy? What's changed? I don't think that's a Jalen Hurts hire. I think that's a Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, banging the drum for him. I think if you look back to what made Doug Pederson get fired, was he didn't want to succumb to the pressure of the front office and Howie Roseman. I'm a head coach. I won you a Super Bowl. I want to pick my staff. I think that was the end of it. They went to 2 Super Bowls now with Nick Sirianni, and after the second time where he relinquished power and they won the Super Bowl, I think he earned a little bit of that turf back, a little bit of that decision-making back to the point where he wanted to hire his guy. And I'll say this, though. I don't think that happens without Jalen Hurts sprinkling the holy water out there with his blessing on this, Sills. I don't think that happens without Jalen Hurts' blessing, but I think mainly that came from Nick Sirianni banging the drum for Kevin Patullo.
I had Doug Pederson on the other day.
Yes. He made some headlines. Look at you just making headlines left and right.
Hey, he said he'd come back as a potential consultant or a coach, offensive coach. You think the Eagles, because they seemingly, I asked him about his relationship, and he goes, we have a great relationship right now, and he'd be open to coming back. I mean, in that role. Do you think that would be something? I already see your face. I already know you're like, that ain't happening, bro. I mean, but why not get the best coaches you possibly can around the kid? Instead of you just said this. I'm not giving a first-year guy training wheels offensive coordinator, Jalen Hurts, the reigning Super Bowl MVP. I'm giving you a guy that took a substitute teacher to a Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl with the guy. Don't you want the best coaching you could possibly get around the kid?
Yes. Sills, when I saw that, I thought, that's great. I'm glad he said it with you and all that. But I also thought, that's adorable. That's nice. That's adorable. So cute that he wants to come back. Like, look, it's not crazy to think about him coming back as an offensive consultant, but if you're Howie Roseman and you're Jeffrey Lurie, and I'm sure you got great relationships still with Doug Pederson and all that, do you really want the guy you fired coming back to help crack the code of the guy that you hired in his stead and has been to 2 Super Bowls, won as many Super Bowls as him? Do you really want that to be the way you do your business? And then you could look at it another way, for instance. You could look at it in a way of a guy like Vance Joseph going back to coach the defense or be the defensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos. That was obviously maybe also Vic Fangio's job, but he had also been a former head coach that came back. So it's not the weirdest thing in the world. But this particular instance, I don't think the Eagles are going to be banging down Doug Pederson's door for him to come in here and be the passing game coordinator or offensive consultant or passing game consultant or whatever title you want to throw on it. I would love to have his input. I would love it. I don't think that the Eagles are going to undermine Nick Sirianni in that regard.
Okay. So I want you, outside of the draft, tell me one replacement for Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Darius Slay.
Impossible.
Gardner Johnson. By the way, one thing about Gardner Johnson, I was told he was a pollutant to the locker room, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of shit right now in the locker room going on. I mean, I thought that stuff was supposed to go away with Gardner Johnson. So
no,
Can
terrible.
you name me one guy that they brought in that was kind of like in the room? Because potentially this weekend, Farzy, your edge rushers are going to be Jalen Hunt, Aziza Ojalara, and it's going to be Keely Ringo and Adoree Nobody.
Yeah.
Going against Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. So I'm curious. I mean, help me out on Howie's accountability in this.
Huge. His huge accountability. I actually talked about it this morning. That huge accountability. And people, two things we're not used to. Actually, three things. Two things. One is offensive line being banged up. Two, paying a running back and a linebacker. Maybe this is the fallout from that. And then three, Howie Roseman's done a terrible job. Darius Slay to a position battle between Adoree Jackson and Keely Ringo? I don't think so. No way. Your defensive end position is terrible. Your edge rusher position, rather, is terrible. Jalen Hunt is taking the babiest of baby steps forward, if you want to call it that. Nolan Smith, obviously, has been banged up now on IR. That's not doing anything for you. Zadarius Smith was here for a couple of weeks, and he's like, yeah, no thanks, deuces, I'm out. And he was actually playing 36% of your snaps in some games, 45 in some games at the edge rusher position. Azeez Ojulari just gets activated. And now you're talking about potentially, now I know the draft is off limits here, but Jahad Campbell being a guy to come in here and all of a sudden be the edge rusher in some snaps with Nakobe Dean coming back. Howie's done a terrible job. And the safety position, let's go back to GJ not being here anymore. Drew Makuba essentially won you a game with how he played against Kansas City Chiefs. Clutch play, right place, right time. Knack for being around the ball. Great. He was also around the ball against the Buccaneers before Baker Mayfield slinged it between him and Reed Blankenship for, a 72-yard touchdown pass. The replacements have not done even close to a serviceable job, Sills, in replacing the guys that they were supposed to replace. I'm still waiting for them to replace Son Reddick, for crying out loud. Howie definitely has a lot of dirt on his hands, unfortunately, when it comes to the guys that he named as possible replacements not footing the bill.
And to compound it, Milton Williams is playing like a first-team Pro Bowler up in New England. You've got Isaiah Rodgers, who you're going to see this weekend, who's the highest-graded corner in pro football right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Josh Sweat, second in the NFL in sacks. Man, bro. And you let a 26-year-old defensive lineman that you developed, Milton Williams, like I said, walk out the freaking door. Yeah. Now, I asked this question. Do you think that Howie – now, look, do I think he did everything wrong in that aspect of you look at the micro? Probably yes. But the macro, and where I'm going with this is, bro, he mortgaged 25 so he can win in 26 and 27 and 28. He's looking ahead. But because of them being so snowed about a year ago, what he did in the free agency and what he did in the draft, the Eagle fans gave him too much equity, don't you think? I mean, as you know, this year, the NFL is a week-to-week league, and it's a year-to-year thing. Man, you could be a dog in a year. Look at Wentz's career. It went like this to this. I mean, it was a high climb, and it was a cliff dive off the cliff. That's the NFL, though, dude.
Yeah, the thing that I will default to, like similar to talking about Jalen Hurts, you can make mistakes. That nobody's perfect in this league, and to use a very condescending word that or phrase that Nick Sirianni has used a couple of times, hey, this isn't tennis. Okay, thanks. All right,
really.
So I mean, I understand that everyone's got a piece of this. A lot of people have a piece of this, but I have confidence that Jalen Hurts is going to bounce back and be a much better quarterback than what we have seen in the last couple of weeks, where he might actually play 3 quarters instead of just 2. and play well with consistency. You might see the same thing from Kevin Patullo. Well, on a longer scale where you kind of got to wait more of a year to year as opposed to week, and maybe even leading up to the trade deadline, I think Howie is better than what we have seen. You get to 3 Super Bowls in an 8-year span. You win 2 of them. That shows that you know how to rebuild a team. 2 of those, you do it with a different head coach and a different quarterback. So that's than you did the first time. So I think that's a good MO to start building for himself. When you get more of an idea of the landscape of what everything's going to look like after Jalen Carter signed, if they pick up Jordan Davis, who was dropped off after the last 3 weeks of the season, when you see all this come to fruition, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, I think Howie's going to have a much better idea of where he can throw money. But I do wonder, and I think it's one of the biggest questions facing the Philadelphia Eagles right now and Howie Roseman, I wonder about the impact of being in this world that we've never been in. The Eagles are paying a running back the biggest contract ever. They're paying a linebacker, a middle linebacker, the biggest contract in the history of the franchise and one of the biggest in the NFL right now. This isn't a world we're used to. So now we're seeing more of a depletion at the cornerback position where we see, yeah, sure, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, great. But everybody else, a lot of questions here, Sills. Safety position. We're used to being able to rely on a safety. We can't do that right now. So is this the fallout? Is this the world that we got to get used to? We begged so much for a linebacker. You got one in Zach Bond. You begged for a running back, one that is that next level. Certainly haven't seen it yet this year, but Saquon Barkley is that next level guy when he's going and the offensive line is even decent. So I wonder if this is the fallout of how he's saying, yes, we definitely going to bring back Zach Bond. We're going to reward that. We definitely want to reward Saquon Barkley as well. Is this the fallout from that money being thrown at those positions that we're not used to seeing a lot of the budget, a lot of the cap applied to?
I didn't ask you what you thought of the Giants kicking the shit out of the Eagles. I mean,
I loved it. I loved it. Just as Orion Kirkering was throwing the ball away at home plate, I got to watch the Eagles, get their asses kicked by the Giants.
That was going on. That's right. That was going on the same time. The guy airmailed it to the backstop.
Yeah. It was the only worse throw than Jalen Hurts' interception. That was the only worst throw of the night.
Oh, my God. What a
Come on.
Wait, oh, my God. Remind me of that later on, everyone. That's a great topic. What was it? The airmailing of the baseball to the backstop or Hurts staring down the ID? I mean, what'd you make of the Giants, man? I mean, that wasn't really close.
They you know what the Giants on that night reminded me of a team.
How shocked were you first?
Immensely shocked that the Giants were able to put that kind of hurting after the way they played. And I watched that game against the Saints, turning the football over without contact, by the way. Jackson Dart just dropped the ball. Like I thought Vic Fangio versus Jackson Dart advantage Vic Fangio. Then all of a sudden you realize that the Giants are playing with, as they say, nothing to lose. They have an opportunity to punch the NFC East bully in the mouth, and they did that. Cam Scatterbo just ran all over a defense that has struggled mightily against the defense. Jackson, he had 3 touchdowns. Jackson Dart just escaping plays in the pocket reminded me of, prime vintage Carson Wentz with the Eagles when he was great before the cliff dive, as you told me about. Jalen Hurts being able to slip out of the pocket. Like, he was just phenomenal. He couldn't make a mistake in that game. And Vic Fangio got pants in that game. Kevin Patullo, again, play calling, very predictable. The Giants were able to jump all over it. The offensive line, when they're not allowing, when Kevin Patullo is not calling Saquon Barkley to run in space, to get him outside, for instance, and get the big runs like that, they fail drastically. And again, it was an easy way to crack the code of the Jalen Hurts, Kevin Patullo, Nick Sirianni offense. It became predictable. It became stale, and it hit a wall, as it has in just about every game this season, where you haven't seen them play the full 4 quarters. And for a team like the Giants that were playing so terrible to all of a sudden regroup and destroy the Eagles, I hope it's the shot in the mouth that the Eagles certainly needed in order to right the ship going forward.
Okay, I got a couple more here for you. Do you think Hurts is limited as a pocket passer? I do.
Yes. Especially when they're not giving him time to look at – this is where Hurts, I think, makes his money besides athleticism. It's – the pre-snap read is pivotal to him. And if they're not getting the plays in on time, which has been kind of a consistent problem, but for whatever reason this year, I think it's the adjustment that the league has made to the Eagles offense, and I think Steve Spagnuolo certainly started to show that in what he did in the Super Bowl. But Jalen hasn't yet made that adjustment. And this is a special year where you need to give him that time at the line of scrimmage to see what the defense is doing. And maybe that's where he can pick out the right play for Saquon to break one, or he knows this is the perfect play to get that slant route to A.J. Brown. Or, hey, maybe this isn't the play where I should throw to Jahan Dotson on the out route. Like, that wouldn't be a good idea in this case. So I think they're limiting him even more so than he is. When he gets to the line of scrimmage, doesn't have time, I think that's where he really struggles, because a lot of his offensive success comes from the pre-snap read. After it's snapped, that's where Jalen, I think, is at his weakest.
I want to ask you about Nick now. Okay, so 24 quarters of football so far this year. I remember hey, we're not talking about defending champion. Hey, we're not going to be out for the flag or whatever, the banner falling and all that.
Yeah.
We talk about culture and how we do things the right way here in Philly. Well, you had a player spitting on another player. You had a guy quitting. You got constant bitching going on back and forth in this infamous meeting that kind of happened but never really happened.
Yeah.
There's walking back every week. You had these grandiose meetings this past weekend with your coaching staff trying to figure out things. How do you think Nick's handled this so far, these 24 quarters of football in 2025?
I think he has handled it exactly the way a head coach who's trying desperately not to throw anyone under the bus. I think that's exactly how he's handling it. You can't tell me, Nick, that accountability is a big thing, a big value of the Philadelphia Eagles, and then tell me that AJ got rerouted. Bull. He stopped running against the Broncos. That was ridiculous. You can't tell me that culture is a big thing, and then one of the big pivotal meetings, as you pointed out, happened in a parking lot where A.J. Brown just happened to see Saquon and Jalen talking and walked up and joined in. Like, that's not, hey, let's correct things. Let's get in the film room. Let's go over tape. That's a casual conversation. That's all that is. As a guy that doesn't want to throw anybody on the bus, congratulations. But what about the guy that's actually more important, the guy that's going to make adjustments to the league that made adjustments on you? What are you going to do about that, Nick, when you got an offensive coordinator who you promoted after 2 years of passing over that apparently can't get out of a predictability rhythm right now, or his rhythm is very predictable? What are you going to do about that, Nick? That's great that you don't want to throw anybody on the bus. That's great that you don't want to let anybody inside and keep all the conversations in-house. I get it. But I haven't seen improvement from week one to right now. You mean to tell me that this team, after a mini bye week, is going to go into Minnesota and play better? I have no reason to believe that. You had the tough conversations. Well, I thought there was a tough conversation had going into the Giants game. Maybe 4 days isn't enough to right that ship. And with all the Eagles' problems right now, unfortunately, I don't think 10 days is enough in a mini bye week to correct the problems. They're going to need that full bye week to maybe have a shot at that. So when you look at it, yeah, he's not throwing, people under that proverbial overused phrase bus. But the bigger story here, the bigger problem is he doesn't seem to have the answers. For 3 weeks now, we've heard about not blaming anyone. We're not looking for blame. We're looking for solutions. Well, in order to solve a problem, the old cliche, Sills, goes, well, if you're going to, the first step in identifying any problem is admitting there is one. So what's the problem? Who do you look to? Well, people are going to look to the inexperience of a guy like Kevin Patullo. People are going to look in the realm of the quarterback, because they always get too much blame and too much credit. And then they got to look to the head coach. What is Nick Sirianni? Who is Nick Sirianni going to look at to say, this is the problem right here? How do I help that? How do I find the answer, the solution to that problem? It's not just going to come out of nowhere.
May I be blunt with you here?
I would expect nothing else.
Okay. What's wrong with a coach going, shut the fuck up and sit your ass down? I don't want to hear any bitching in this goddamn locker room any longer. I don't want to hear any of this. If you got a problem with somebody, come to me first and we'll work it out. I don't want to see you guys floating around like I don't want my daughter to hear me, so I don't want you to see you floating around like worms. Sitting there on social media, posting stupid things like this. What's wrong with having hardcore conversations and making things stay in-house so that you don't have to have people like Bob Lang put these walkbacks on there? So people have to walk back things every week, and it makes your players look like idiots. I mean, what's so wrong with that? How come these people can't? I mean, look, I love Mike Tomlin. This guy puts people on blast. Sit down, shut up. It's bigger than you. Why can't we go there?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this: with Nick Sirianni, he is probably the weirdest coach I've experienced in Philadelphia in 20 years. 20 years in the Philadelphia media now. Like, I don't get the flower power speech that worked. What? Yelling at fans, saying you called a defense when Vic Fangio is your defense. What? Like, there's just things that he does that just don't make any sense. But for whatever reason, the locker room loves him. Let's go back to A.J. Brown in Seattle. They have that quote unquote miscommunication at the end of the game. Do you remember this? It was right after it was that week A.J. stopped icing out the media. And if you remember, Nick Sirianni took that on the chin and said, that was on me, that was my mistake, all that stuff. And AJ, after he stopped icing out the media, he came out with the statement like, I love Nick. Nick's great. Nick takes responsibility for us, and he takes the blame when it was really on us. At the end of that game, it was me and Jalen improvising. And I first thought, wow, what a beautiful time. I remember when you guys used to improvise. That was fun. And then I thought about that's why this locker room loves him. It's a very similar Andy Reid thing. Of it's always on me. I got to do a better job, blah, 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 without ever outing anybody else. But I'll tell you the thing that really pissed me off was after this game against the Giants, he got asked about adjustments in the game and adjustments to the defense in the second half and what they're doing throughout a game. And are you making the right or the correct adjustments, in-game adjustments that you need to do to win? And his answer to that, the short form was, yeah. And it wasn't like acknowledging the question, yeah. It was answering in the affirmative. I don't know who the hell you're trying to sell a bucket of crap to.
Yeah.
But everyone watching these games realizes that there's some point where the defensive coordinator, Todd Bowles, a perfect example, says, okay, code cracked. Let's do this. And that's it. And Kevin Patullo, by the way, admits to it. Like after the game against the Buccaneers, he says, oh, we did a bad job of putting ourselves in positions where Todd Bowles thrives. It was like, if you know the position in which he thrives, why are you constantly putting yourself in that position in the second half to the point where it amounts to 0 completions in the second half? Like, to me, you can't answer in the affirmative that you've been making the right in-game adjustments when we see it week after week after week all season long. Finally
here, what will Philadelphia look like if Carson Wentz on Sunday wins? Fars, how will that look if Carson Wentz pulls this upset off and wins this ball game against the Eagles?
There'll be a lot of drinking. There'll be heavy drinking. Maybe things worse.
Hey, I think he's 3-1 since he's been there, 2-1 since he's played.
Yeah.
I mean,
they got him. Here's the thing. A lot of people will harp on the 9 sacks that the Eagles got him for when he was with the Commanders. Or I think that were they still a Washington football team? I don't know. But that was not the same defensive line or edge rushers that the Eagles have now.
Oh, yeah.
The Eagles, by the way, I have the numbers. I should give these to you because that's a big part of the Eagles game. So 9 sacks on the season, which is terrible. They have no edge rusher even ranked in the top 20, I believe it is.
Oh, it's the worst room in the league.
Well, yeah, win rate is terrible. Jalen Carter, when he's available, he's the 6th best at win rate. Moro Ajomo is the 10th best, but you can't rely on these guys, unfortunately, especially Jalen Carter, who's either spitting on somebody or missing a game with an injury. So, like, that's not going to be part of it. And then the Eagles are 5th in takeaway. I'm sorry. They have only 5 takeaways on the season. So that thing that you're relying on earlier in the year for the defense to come up with that big play, that big stop that turns the tide of the game, which, by the way, dates back to last year. That also dates back to the Eagles' first Super Bowl win when Nick Foles was their quarterback in the Super Bowl. They always came up with that clutch turnover. They haven't gotten it. They haven't gotten it recently. And look, it's amounted to 2 losses. So I think that's a huge part of it. Your defensive line has to get up there. If you're looking for hope, there might be a major adjustment coming, which is Jahad Campbell getting the opportunity to play edge rusher as opposed to linebacker with Nakobe Dean coming out. That might be just what the doctor ordered for this defense. And I hope it is, as a matter of fact.
What happened to Reed Blankenship? I mean, I saw his face on a milk carton in Philly at a Wawa, And
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it said 1-800.
that goes
If
together.
you've seen this guy, please call Novacare. What happened to
Yeah.
this guy, man?
That-
He's supposed to be a $15 million a year guy. What happened to him?
Well, that goes together because he's on a milk carton and Cooper DeJean's on a cereal box. So you put them together and they're right. That actually works out well.
I got it. I got it. We're all together here.
Yeah. There we go. But I don't know. I heard guys at training camp singing his praises about the leader that he is, how great he is with that. But what we saw last year with the guy sealing games, again, you go back to those interceptions, you go back to those turnovers last year to help seal wins in particular. It just hasn't been there. And I know I mentioned Drew Makuba on that big play versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers where it went through his hands. It went through Reed Blankenship as well. Look, if the Eagles are going to shift gears from a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to a Drew Makuba, rookie safety, then the guy next to him better be pretty damn good. And unfortunately, that hasn't been it. If I could, fish a wish of two things that are possible, well, one is Jahad Campbell being that edge rusher, and I think you'll see that going up against the Vikings. And then the other is Justin Simmons is still sitting out there. What are we doing here? The guy knows Vic Fangio's offense. Defense, excuse me. He's a much better option right now than Drew Makuba. The startup cost for Drew Makuba, or even Reed Blankenship, he could come in and start for you tomorrow. I don't understand why those upgrades haven't happened yet, and that goes again more so to Howie Roseman than anything.
Yeah, but Farzy, why don't you just do this? Resign CJ and put Cooper out at corner. Put him at safety. Put him in the slot. Put Makuba in the slot. Whoever. Yeah. That would at least upgrade the garbage you have back there right now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely would. The unfortunate thing, I think, yeah, that would. But the unfortunate thing is I think Vic Fangio really put dirt on that coffin with his "I didn't mind it" line.
Yeah.
With Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
He did.
Yeah.
I
like the cap move. It's a cap move. That's fine. You could say that. But once he goes, I was fine with it, then I think that ship was sailed. And plus, they would have done it already.
Yeah. You're right. So how about this here? You spent $200 million on that offense, right? Yeah. You're 30th in total offense. You're 25th in rushing. You're 29th in passing. You're 27th in third down. I mean, you lead the league in 3 and outs. You turn around, and this is why your defense is bleeding to death. You're 21st in total D. You were number 1. You dropped 20 spots with the blowtorch defense, I'm calling it. You're 12th in pass defense. You were number 1 in pass defense a year ago. You're 26th against the run. Jordan Davis, no thank you. You're 19th in scoring, and you're 26th in third down, which means this. See those two numbers? Defensively, third down, you're 26th, which means you can't get off the field. And an offense, you're 27th, which means you get off the field too much. The offense is Chip Kelly-ing your defense right now. Are they not?
No, they absolutely are. Vic was asked about that today as well, about the amount of snaps that they have seen as a defense, whether or not there's wear and tear and fatigue setting in. And his answer was the simplest answer you could give. It was no. I was like, okay, it doesn't. I mean, what other explanation?
That was not a truthful answer.
You know what it was? It was not. It was someone not willing. Someone who's usually pretty honest, not acknowledging the fact that his defense just looks gassed. But beyond that, they're just not good enough. There's a reason that they're in those positions. It's not just because they're just not good enough. And after the game against the Giants, we were talking about how they quit. They quit, and I was like, I hope they quit, because if they quit, then that's at least the option of we don't want to do it.
Reflection on Nick, isn't it?
It's a reflection on Nick. It's a reflection on the players. It's a reflection on Vic. It's a reflection on the whole franchise. But I'd rather them have quit a game than be terrible. Like, I'd rather them choose to be bad as opposed to, no, we're really trying hard, but we suck. Sorry. Like that's what I'd rather have in that case. They were already on the bus in the fourth quarter, as far as I was. End of the third quarter, they were already on the bus.
Herb Street said they checked out. I mean, he was like, The Eagles have checked out of this football game. Farzy, I'll tell you what, man. One thing about your football team that I've enjoyed the last 5 years, they bring you content, brother, every day. Hey, they bring you the content, man. It is
never short of doubt. Connor Barwin, I remember talking to him after the year after he was done. He's with the Eagles still as a administrator. I forget what he's doing, but I remember asking him about what he noticed about the media now that he's not playing, and he's just like, the takes, man. I hear all the take. Everybody's got a take. And he's right. And the Eagles, certainly in this city, in this market, they produce a lot of takes.
Well, I'll tell you one last thing that Doug told me to let you out of here with. I asked him, I go, what do you make of Nick being able to kind of elevate guys from within? You know what he said? He goes, well, that's nice. I'm glad that he gets the chance to do that.
I love that. And I've always been a Doug fan, but that's a great line. That's a phenomenal line.
Hey, obviously implying he didn't get the chance to elevate
exactly.
from within. So, Farzy, you are awesome always to me. You always find time. Thank you so much, my good friend. Great luck on your show, bro.
My pleasure, brother. I'll see you.
You got it.